Welcome to Buckets. I am your host, Brandon Anderson, back from the dead on Buckets. It's been ages. I'm here. With Joe Dallaire and Jim Turvey. The gang is back together to bring you some Friday Buckets presented by BetMGM, as always, here on Buckets. We're excited. We just finished watching an enthralling Lakers 7,000 point beatdown in the in-season tournament. We're recording Thursday night after the game. The usual Friday crew, Matt Moore and Sean Little, are in Vegas to cover the games live. I believe they're coming to you live from Vegas. Live. They're live. They won't be live when you listen to them. They'll hopefully still be alive when you listen to them. But you can listen to them sometime Friday or Saturday, covering the title game for Saturday night between the Indiana Pacers and the Los Angeles Lakers, fresh off their victories Thursday. We today are going to give you three things. We're going to give you Friday best bets off the top for the slate of non-in-season tournament games coming Friday night. Big full slate. We will talk a little bit more about the in-season tournament and react a little bit to what we saw Thursday, take an early look at the championship matchup. And then it's Friday, so a little quick Futures Friday exercise at the end to wrap up. Jim, Joe, we're glad to have you guys on. We got a lot to get to today, so I'm going to skip the formalities and get right to it. Let's get to our best bets for the Friday slate at the top. Jim Turvey, give me your Friday best bets.
I've got Thunder -3.5, and I've got Clippers -6.5.
All righty. And Joe, you've got a couple of props. What are you looking at?
I'm looking at Jason Tatum over 25.5 points against the New York Knicks, and Chet Holmgren over 24.5 points plus rebounds against the Golden State Warriors.
All right, so we've got a couple picks here from Thunder Warriors. Thunder at home against the Warriors. I like to think of this as the actual in-season tournament championship. These are the teams we're really all here to see. So let's start with that one. Jim, give us your cap for why you're on the Thunder -3.5.
Yeah, this seems like a stale line to me. This doesn't seem like a line that should be for the 2023-24 Warriors and Thunder and a game in Oklahoma City. They should be favored by more than 1 point. So these two teams have had much different seasons. The Warriors have disappointed so far, and the Thunder have been, among the fun breakout stories of the season. The Warriors, what really intrigues me about them, though, they don't have any good wins. They're 4-9 against teams over 500 this season, and two of them come with a very heavy asterisk. One of them was against the Kings without De'Aaron Fox. They did beat the Kings with Fox. We know they kind of love playing the Kings, so even that one you can make an argument. It's not maybe the most impressive win, but it's a win over team against a team over 500 with their best players. The other one is against the Thunder without SGA. Now, the Thunder and Warriors have played twice since that game. You remember that was the game with the tip-in that was even controversial in the early in-season tournament that kind of decided the fates of both teams there. And that one was with SGA. The two that they have played since were Thunder wins and both in Golden State. Now this one's back in Oklahoma City. I make this 5.5. So there's even a little bit of wiggle room for me here. The Thunder, they've got a lot that they can throw at what has become basically Steph Curry and a lot of washed players. Maybe that's the washed offensively, at least players. So between SGA, who is playing at a top 5 to 10 defensive player in the whole league right now level, who can play on Curry, they also have length and young athletic people to throw at him over and over again. On the flip side, the Warriors really don't have anyone to throw at SGA. So I really think this is a great spot for the Thunder. And Joe, I know you're on a Thunder prop. I'm curious if you lean that direction as well, though.
Yeah, no, definitely. I like the Thunder. I think your cap is good. And a big part of that, too, is Chet Holmgren's been dynamite, right? And this line, I think, is just a touch low at 24.5. He's gone over this in 2 of 3 games head to head against the Warriors. And they've kind of adjusted the line. Like if you look at his hit rate over the course of the whole season, it's actually not very good on this line. He's only hit this in 35% of games, but he's 2/3 against the Warriors, averaging 33.7 PR. And he has a double-double in 2 of the 3 games. So he's been really, really good. And I think that a large part of that is the Warriors don't really have like somebody that's a great matchup for him. Like I guess the best option is Draymond, but then like, do you really want to use Draymond on what's the number like 2 or 3 or maybe even 4, depending on who's on the floor, like offensive option for them? Probably not. Like that's not really the best use of Draymond, and that's not even really how the Warriors use Draymond. Additionally, Kevon Looney over the course of this season has looked a little slow. Like it looks like there's like a little bit more cement in his shoes, and it's a problem for trying to defend a guy like Chet. He had that big moment where he took that crazy like inbound buzzer beater to send the game to overtime against the Warriors. And like, we know he likes playing against them. He's comfortable against them. He's had some big games. I think the 24.5, I like the combo prop just because I do see some upside in the rebounds. And I think he can also go off in terms of his scoring. So the 24.5, I think is just a bit low against a team that just doesn't really feel like they have somebody that can guard him properly.
Yeah, the Kevon Looney thing feels like a problem for them. I'm not really too sure what he's supposed to do in this matchup when Chet Holmgren is out there. So, yeah, I don't know how you necessarily match up. Then I would hope Wiggins, maybe the way that he kind of broke out last week, maybe he's the guy that you put on Shea. That you've got Jalen Williams to defend. Like
Yeah.
it's a mess that they don't have a lot of answers to. So it makes a lot of sense that OKC would be the pick here. We're going to talk about at least one of these teams later. Spoiler alert, we'll be talking about both of them thanks to my ballot as we got there. But I do think that the OKC seems like the side here, and Chet seems like a good way to play it. Joe, would you, if you like OKC as well, would you like do a same game on this? Would you put those together? Is it correlated for you?
I think you could. It's not like super correlated to me. I think that like obviously like if Chet has like a big game, like sure, but I think it would be more like if he scored 20 points rather than like the combo prop. So like I think like the combo prop, you can get there with like a 15 and 10 game, right?
Yeah.
Or like a 17 and 8 or something like that. I think if my math's right. But but I think like it would be a little bit more correlated if he was going to have like a 20 or 25 point game. Then I think it'd be a little bit closer to that, because then it's like they really struggled defending him, which probably means that like it opened up a lot of other things offensively for OKC.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, let's go to Utah. And Jim, you are on the Clippers -6.5 on the road in Utah. Why do you like the Clippers here?
Yeah, so for the last game, it was kind of looking at two teams who are moving different directions for the season as a whole. This is two teams that are moving different directions of late. And I think the Jazz have a lot. They need to send like an early holiday thank you to the Pistons and Spurs, who have these mega long losing streaks that are kind of taking the attention off of just how bad the Jazz have been this season. By adjusted net rating, they're actually third worst in the league and lower than the Pistons. So this is a team that is very quietly. I mean, the last game wasn't quiet. You got that amazing clip from coach there saying that it was a real disaster, 50-point loss to the Mavs. And it was, that has not been a rarity for the Jazz. Lauri Markkanen is out. They've looked pretty poor with Lauri out. And the Clippers are finally starting to put things together, not in the sense that I want to hop on the bandwagon for their long-term future. That's not something I'm going to do. I'm not going to do that. But I do think for right now, this starting five that they've got is starting to put together a nice little run of play here. They're plus 11.4 in 167 minutes. They started playing Harden with some of the bench guys in the last game against Denver. That was a really nice win for them, and that propelled a really strong second quarter for them. So these are two teams in vastly different directions right now, and I think this has a little bit of room. I'd even play it at 7.5 as well. It opened at 5 and very quickly took money. So I think there's a little bit of room on this. And yeah, I'm going to be looking to fade these Jazz as long as Lauri is out. And Kelly Olynyk, who's actually been their second best player by BPM this year, is questionable as well. So that's only an added bonus if he's out, but I like it even if he does play.
Yeah, the Clippers had that win Wednesday night against the Nuggets, and I just feel like you come out early, and the Nuggets, I think at the end of the first quarter, it just looks like another Nuggets Clippers blowout, right? Like, oh great, we've done this again. We put it on TV. Why is this on ESPN? And now all of a sudden, just like it's honestly one of Joker's worst nights of his like prime career. Like his shooting percentages were like an actual NBA player, not like every other Jokic game ever. He missed so many shots. I mean, he still had a triple double, of course, because Jokic. But I don't. I don't take anything away from the Nuggets from that game. I don't really care. I'm not really sure I take a ton away from the Clippers as far as like next time they play again or a playoff matchup. But I think just mentally to get the win in a matchup that has just been crushing you, that like when this new schedule came out this week and the Clippers were like, are you kidding me? You're giving us the Nuggets again? Like we get an extra Nuggets game early in the season, the way that that's gone for them. I think just mentally, and I think that matters with this team, with Harden and with PG and what we've seen from some of these guys, like to get the monkey off the back and just have that win. And what's your reward? No party night in Utah. Just go beat the Jazz, and you're playing like worse than the Pistons. Sort of speaks for itself. So yeah, certainly the Clippers should win. Jim, how have the Clippers done lately against like the dregs of the league? Are they taking care of business in these games?
That's a great question. Why you go to Joe for the prop, and I'll dig into that a
Okay.
little bit.
All right, Joe, let's talk about your Knicks. And they drew, and thanks to the in-season tournament loss, they get a bonus game against Boston. Sorry to New York fans for that one. You are on Jason Tatum in this one.
Yeah, we got bonus games against the Celtics and the Bucks, so just sick, awesome, awesome for us. But look, Tatum, this points line I think is just too low. It's 25.5. Over the last 2 seasons and 6 regular season games against the Knicks, he's gone over this in 5 of them, averaging 30.7 points per game against the Knicks. Obviously, Kristaps Porzingis is supposed to return to this game. I will be looking at Kristaps Porzingis' threes. So there is no line out at this point in time, or I didn't see a line out at the time of this recording. He absolutely mashes threes against the New York Knicks. Like, just bet it. Forget it. It's going to come out at 1.5. It might even be like minus 110 because he's coming back off of injury. Bet it and forget it. But anyway, Tatum has not been impacted by having Porzingis there with him. And in the most recent game, had 26 points against the Knicks. And then in the game previous to that last season, he had 35. So I think this is a good spot for him. I know that his scoring has been down like a touch overall over the course of the season with, having Drew Holiday, having Kristaps Porzingis in the fold along with Jaylen Brown. But Tatum is too good of a scorer. The Knicks don't really have like a great defensive option to throw at him. Like you might see a little bit of time with Randall, or like him having to defend Randall, who's in his like, I don't even know what's going on right now with Randall. Like the guy just couldn't miss the other night. So we'll see what happens there. But I think this line is just a touch too low for a guy that has incredible usage and can kind of get into the teeth of the Knicks defense in a way that the other guys on the Celtics can kind of struggle to with some of the other Knicks like guard play and the wing defenders like Josh Hart. So I like Tatum over 25.5.
Yeah, we were chatting just before we hit record here, trying between the three of us to figure out why is this Tatum line so low. Usually that's a pretty good sign for an angle. If like the line genuinely doesn't make sense and seems like it should be higher, probably tells me there's a good chance it will end up higher by tip.
Yeah.
Jim, did you find the stat you're looking for?
I did. So, interestingly enough, they really haven't played much of the dregs of the league. Their last 11 games, they've only played the Spurs. They did play them twice for a team with any losing record. So they smacked the Spurs the first game, beat them by 25. It was a back-to-back both in San Antonio, and they beat them by 7 the second night. So they really haven't had a chance to kind of play around with a team of this poor a level. Even that Spurs game was almost 3 weeks ago now. So they've played some really tough opponents, and they've actually looked pretty good in those. So I think that speaks to this mini turning of a corner. You never want to fully go all in on a Clippers team, especially with a long-term focus. But for the moment, I think I'm fine with seeing them against a bad team on Friday here.
Yeah, I like it. All right, so Jim is on Clippers minus 6.5 at the Jazz, and OKC minus 3.5 against the Warriors. Joe in that game has got Chet Holmgren points and rebounds over 24.5, and then Jason Tatum against his beloved Knicks over 25.5 points. Gentlemen, let's talk about the NBA in-season tournament. We just finished watching, or pretending to watch at least, the evening game that ended up, I don't even know what the final score was. It was like a 30 or 40 point margin for most of the second half. So yeah, we have the Indiana Pacers won the Vegas afternoon game that started out pretty dead in the crowd there, a little slow going, but heated up in the second half. We got another Tyrese Halliburton masterclass. The man has yet to commit a turnover at the in-season tournament knockout rounds between two games. Ridiculous. And then, the Lakers just destroyed the Pelicans. So before we get to a championship look and just like early thoughts on this, and again, Sean and Matt, I think will be covering this as well. But Joe, from what we saw from just today's action, what takeaways do you have? Is there anything to learn from the games we saw on Thursday?
I mean, Tyrese Halliburton is him for sure. And LeBron is still dynamite. Like when LeBron wants to play, I get it. Like he's older now. Like I say he's older. Dude's not that old. But like he's older for the NBA. When he wants to get up for a game, like he is getting up for a game. And it's impressive. Like it's crazy because he was without a question the best player on the floor in that game against the Pelicans. And I think this style of tournament fits like what he can do really well because like he can just turn it on. Like he's one of those players that can just hit the light switch and it's like he's that dude. And it's hard to say like you want anybody else besides him in a game, like one game that you have to win right now, the way that he's playing. So I think that it's going to be really interesting. And then the only other thing that I would note is that Indiana's defense, I don't think it's not good, but what they're doing is I think that they've locked in like a little bit. They're a little bit crisper. And it's like, are they making a movement in these games that kind of like quote unquote matter from going from like the worst defense in the league to even like 20th? And like, what does that do when your offense is literally the best in the league, the best in NBA history so far?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I feel like we've seen in both of these Pacers games, to me, I feel like I've seen them lock in the second half. Like it takes a while to get there. It's a layup line early, and then that intensity kind of takes up. And that makes sense too. Like it's a playoff setting. The thing too about LeBron that I think I just didn't really process this way, and this is a very narrative sort of thing. It's LeBron, so we're going to do the narrative thing. He never got to go to college, right? He never got to be in March Madness. He never got to play in a one-game knockout tournament setting. Like this is a new thing for him. And like, look, we don't need to do the thing, but Michael Jordan never got to do this. Like he gets to do a thing that like Jordan and Bird and Magic and all the other greats didn't get to do. And like very clearly, we wondered, would the players matter? Guess what? LeBron cares. And if LeBron cares and LeBron wants to win right now, then everybody else is going to care all the other years in the future because like that's how this goes. And like, yeah. That's LeBron, right? Like LeBron is setting the tone for this new thing, and him and the Lakers, frankly, because the Lakers are important for the league, being there in the finals, like that matters in a positive way that will set the tone for this tournament being, quote, a thing going forward now. And I think I didn't really think about just how much, I mean, obviously the legacy thing is always going to be in your mind with LeBron, but I think just the fun of being able to play in the one game knockout setting, he's never really had that. For all the things he's done in his storied long career, it's a new, almost fun. Like it's I get to try a fun new thing. And so I think we kind of have seen that. Even Matt was noting in our Slack, like, oh, LeBron did the crown thing on his head before the game. Like you just can kind of see, like we know when he looks locked in, and he obviously very much was tonight. Jim, what did you take away from today's games?
Yeah, well, I think it's so interesting because, the NBA is the one league that you'll even hear like really sharp bettors sometimes say, narrative in all other sports is like pretty bunk. There are times where in the NBA it does actually have a little bit that you have to pay some attention to. And this kind of looks like it. But I will say, and this is as a very bitter man who has bet against these Lakers consistently, I will say that it turns out that LeBron actually does have a big three again. It's LeBron, AD, and Lady Luck is playing a big role as that third key factor on the Lakers here. So I'm gonna quiz you guys here. So in the Lakers this season, in the regular season, not including the in-season tournament games, which you have to kind of do a little bit of math with the NBA.com filters, but try to guess what the Lakers are shooting from three on those regular season, non-in-season games, and then what they are shooting from three in their in-season tournament games. So I'll get two numbers from each of you guys.
All right, let's start with the in-season
Okay.
tournament. Let's do the tournament game percentage first. I will guess. I mean, like we didn't outright say it. That was clearly the story tonight. Like they just bombed from threes. They
Yep.
had, I think, 11 at the half. To me, there's no game takeaway from tonight because it just was like, all right, they made all their threes and the game was over instantly. So no more analysis from that. I'm gonna say 43% in the tournament for the Lakers from three. Joe, what do you got?
Yeah, I would say like 41% in tournament. And I was looking at this the other day. So, like, I think for the full season. So, I'll let you guess first, Brandon.
Okay. I'm going to go 36% for
I
the
think
non-tournament games.
I think it was like 32% or something. It was bad. Like it was like I remember looking at this because like the splits on like what like they're supposed to shoot, it was just like preposterous. It was terrible.
So you guys were right directionally. Obviously, I was leading the witness, but you didn't even go far enough. They're shooting 30.3% outside of the tournament and 44.9% in the tournament. That is an
Wow.
absolutely insane split. Now, there is obviously noise in both directions. I don't think they're as bad as 30.3. I don't think they're as good as 44.9, but I really don't think they're as good as 44.9. I think it is much closer to 30.3. And so, I mean, I'm really not trying. I'm not trying to take away from their wins, but I do think that as we cap this final championship game, it's something that needs to be thought about because this is, even though the Lakers did show like last season they went on a decent playoff run, and I think I underestimated them there as well. But that was, I looked at that, they didn't shoot better from three. It wasn't like something like LeBron can get better open looks in the postseason, or he's more locked in, or these shooters like they're better than we think and they shoot better in these big moments. No, in fact, they shot a little bit worse in the postseason last year. So I think that's an incredibly noisy number. And as we kind of lead into maybe some actionable bets here for the final, I have something that will tie into that because I do think it's going to come back to earth a little bit.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
think
mean,
I was
45 to 30%, it literally is a 50% jump
Yeah.
in shooting percentage for those games. And it's like, we
It's
know,
insane.
like we could do that, I'm sure, for other teams. And I'm sure that teams that are eliminated have the opposite split where it's like, that's why a group play and a one game knockout, that's why you're going to get random teams. Like, look, a thing that I noted here that I think is actually kind of fun, it feels like, oh, well, it's the Lakers and LeBron, so of course they made the finals. But like the reality is, if you go by some of the metrics, not counting tonight's game because it's not included in these, but from Basketball Reference, Lakers were 21st in net rating entering tonight, 22nd in SRS, they're 25th in offense, they're 13-9. But those metrics say not you're in the finals of a tournament, they say you're not a playoff team. Like literally, that's what it would say. The Pacers, they're just kind of fine. They're 11-8. They're 11th in net rating. They're 11th in SRS. Like they're the number one offense, number one pace. They're kind of the Kings, right? They're the cute story that like, oh, the Pacers are fun and they'll lose in the first round of the playoffs. Like we know how we treat teams like that. In no world, in no NBA world, would you look blindly at a resume of what we're seeing from these two teams and be like, oh, those are the two teams playing for a championship trophy. So like to the credit of a tournament, to the credit of the shooting luck that you're saying, Jim, like it's, you want Lady Luck in a tournament setting like this. I wouldn't have wanted it on LeBron's side, wouldn't have picked it to go that way. Oh, good, the Lakers got another bit of luck in their favor. Finally, they're catching a break. But I think that's kind of the fun way to think about the tournament. So just to set up the final game, we're just still getting lines out. We're recording, this is about 12:30 Eastern into Friday. So this line, I'm sure, will be moving. What we saw, it opened as Lakers minus 2.5 against the Pacers. The Lakers were at minus 134 in the money line, Pacers plus 114. Total at 236.5, which initially I was like, what is happening with that? As we stand right now at the one book I'm looking at, it is obviously we are getting some money on the Lakers, much to everyone's shock and awe. The Lakers are at minus 3.5 now. Money line has moved to minus 164 for the Lakers, plus 138 for Indiana. And that total is indeed on the rise to 240. So initial, just looking at just those lines before we get into props or anything else. And I've got a few questions for you guys as well as my experts, as the guy that's been watching football for 3 months. So just initial glance at the line and the matchup. Joe, what's your first thought that comes to mind seeing that?
I mean, the first thing that we did was like I bet the Lakers on the money line in part to hedge my Tyrese Halliburton MVP ticket, but then also just because like that line was going to move. Like there was no way we're not going to get public money on the Lakers like right away, and I wanted a little piece of it at the best number to kind of hedge my Halliburton ticket to an extent. And same thing with the over. These Pacers games have just been like printing money on the over, but I do think that there's going to be an opportunity. I kind of want to buy back on the under like later. I want to see like where this closes, and maybe either try to middle it or, put in like a bigger position on the under, in large part talking about the 3-point numbers and the 3-point metrics that you guys have talked about. The Lakers per 100 possessions per Basketball Reference take the fewest 3-pointers per game. The Pacers do a really good job of driving people off of the 3-point line. So it kind of like plays into like what the Lakers do kind of plays into like what the Pacers like want you to do. So in a way, I do think it favors the Lakers because like they don't have to really deviate from what they want to do because they just want to put their heads down and halfback dive into the paint. That's what they want to do. And I do think that that's like a little bit tougher than for Indiana, because if they do want to like change, they're gonna have to like change their scheme. They're gonna have to do something a little bit different. I just think that there's not going to be as much 3-point volume from the Lakers here to kind of like steer the ship, or so to speak. And I can see this like being a little bit more of like a heavy intensity defensive game. We've seen Indiana, like I mentioned before, kind of lock in a little bit. And like if LeBron wants to play defense, he becomes an incredible defender when he wants to play defense, just because of his IQ and like what that does to the rest of the team. So I think that there's going to be a buyback opportunity, given the fact that it opened at 236.5. We're at 240, and it's not even like an hour after post. I wouldn't be surprised to see this. Like we saw this Bucks Pacers total go up. I think it was literally 10 points from the open. So, and it went under. So I think that there's an opportunity to buy back a little bit on an offense, again, especially with the Lakers offense. It's like not particularly good overall.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I have a couple of comments to reply, but Jim, what are you thinking so far? Just initial thoughts seeing the lines here.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised to see it open Lakers only -2.5. We talked about, and by we I mean you, Brandon. You pointed out that this Vegas arena was going to be Laker. And I think I saw Sean Little, who we said is at the tournament, saying that it seemed like it was like 97% Lakers fans and 3% people who took the points, which I thought was a great line. Because, yeah, I think it was 100% Lakers fans, basically, and a few people who maybe were trying to fade them. But, I was thinking it was going to be about 5.5, to be honest. I don't really have a lean on a side here, in part because I would probably look towards the Pacers, but this Lakers team, I can't tell if this is a ticking time bomb for regression or if they really are locked in right now. And LeBron did like it's been incredible watching him the last 2 games. And this is coming. I am typically the high man on LeBron, and I've just been doubting him over and over again. It is truly amazing at this point what he's doing. So I'm with Joe though. I kind of want to let this get steamed up and then look towards the under. Part of it is that shooting regression, and then I do think that we haven't necessarily seen this be the case. So, proceed with caution. But in theory, this is a playoff type atmosphere, which does tend to skew more under than over. So if we put those two factors together, again, if it gets steamed up high enough, I'll probably be looking to go under. If we can get it into the mid 240s, I'll definitely be looking at that. But as of this second, there's nothing on the decider total that I feel like I have to jump at. But I'm curious, Brandon, I know Joe said he was he grabbed that Lakers number real quick because of the Halliburton. Are you doing anything for your Halliburton hedge, or just riding it to glory?
Yeah, honestly, I think I'm probably just going to ride it to glory at this point, because I am embracing the magic of the cup. And I just like, Jim, you and I both watch soccer. We watch our teams play in some of these like domestic cups and these sort of tournaments. Just something happens here. And like going into the game, the first game Monday night, I don't get any credit for this. This is not a victory lap because I didn't bet it. It's nowhere. I just thought that the Celtics were going to lose to the Pacers because it just felt like the way the tournament had to start. It was our first ever knockout game in a March Madness type setting. And like when March Madness starts, there's always that, for me in Central Time, 11:15 tip for the first game, and there's that first window of 4 games. I always pick an upset in that first window because it just, in my head, there's always an early upset. That's how you know the tournament has really started. And it just felt like, the Pacers, the Celtics in that game Monday, the Celtics went on a big run at the end of the half. And most of the time, it's like, well, that's it. The Celtics are better and they kind of pull away now. And the Pacers just kind of hang around and they keep running down your throat. And suddenly Tyrese Halliburton puts up a ton of threes, or suddenly, tonight near their, I guess this afternoon, whenever the stupid game was in Vegas, suddenly it's like we got Nemhard making plays and TJ McConnell like slapping the ball out of bounds off of dudes, and like just Cinderella-y stuff. And to me, I think that I will expect the Lakers to get up ahead. I have a couple of reasons for that. Basically, all the stuff that you guys said. I will wait, but I think that I might actually, this will, I'm sure, shock you. I might just double down and bet on the Pacers again. And I want to bet live, though, when I think that the Lakers get a lead, and then there will be this like swell of money coming in, like, okay, got to get our Lakers while we can. So you guys want to come back on the under. I want to come back on the Pacers, I think, partly because here's my main thing. Joe, you talked about the 3-pointers thing, and I agree. That was one of the points I wanted to bring up. On the other end of things, the Lakers allow the top 5 most 3-pointers and 3-point attempts. Pacers are top 10 in 3-point attempts by rating, but they're number 3 in makes. They're third in percentage. And I do the thing where I fall into the trap of, well, here's what I would do if I was coaching this game. But it is Rick Carlisle, so I'm going to assume Rick Carlisle is smart and better than I am at coaching. What I would do is I think the Pacers need to come into this game assuming they're the underdog here.
Oh, yeah.
And I think when you're the underdog in March Madness setting, in a 1-game setting, what do? One way to overcome being the underdog is you crank up the variance by jacking a bunch of threes. And we got Buddy Hield, we got Tyrese Halliburton, like 2 of the best shooters in the league, other shooters on the team. Halliburton, I looked up. I think I will look for Halliburton props. Obviously, we all will, but specifically Halliburton threes. Last 7 games, Halliburton's shooting 11.5 threes per game and averaging 5.1 makes on threes. Not tournament games. Like, those are just the last 7 consecutive games that he's played. It's a huge number. He's averaging 32.3 points a game during that stretch. Like, I think you just go bombs away. And if you can go bombs away, that increases the variance to come back from behind from like the Lakers 8-point, 12-point lead, whatever. Boom. Suddenly you hit like 2-3 threes in a row and you can close a gap in a hurry. And like we've seen lines bounce around in games like this. We've seen in playoff settings the last couple of years, big comebacks, right? Where the game should have been over and there was a big comeback later. So, certainly there's part of that that's just begrudging Brandon not willing to accept LeBron winning yet another thing. Like, that's for sure part of that cap, I'm sure. But what do you guys think about just the idea of cranking up the 3-point variance and possible big swings in a game like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. Like that kind of is how Indiana has operated, right? And like by increasing the number of possessions, it's interesting, right? Because like if you play faster, in theory, some of that variance should even out because you have more possessions for it to even out. So it's definitely like it's definitely interesting. But I do think that what I'm curious to see is, will either team like pivot from their strategy? So like for you, like you're kind of saying like Indiana, will they jack up the 3-point variance, or like will they just run their offense because like they kind of shoot a lot of threes anyway? I think the big question is honestly, will the Lakers, because we've seen this before, like will LeBron cover Halliburton? Because if LeBron covers Halliburton, that's going to be a problem for Indiana, because that is like, he has the size, he can probably keep up like speed wise. Halliburton's not like the fastest dude. If that happens, that's a problem. And I think that's like something we've seen LeBron do. He's done it to Curry. He's done it to like, we've seen it happen like in the playoffs before. So I'm nervous to see like exactly what happens there. Because like I have that type of Halliburton ticket. But I do think that jacking up the variance, at least from a 3-point perspective, and increasing the speed might make it harder for a guy like LeBron to cover somebody that's like the engine of an offense like that, at least for an extended period of time. But, maybe in crunch time, where we've seen Halliburton be so good, he's also played these teams where they haven't really put anybody on him like that. Like he obviously, like Drew Holiday was obviously on him, Derek White was on him, but that he was still able to facilitate with everybody else. So that's what I'm curious to see. Like, will a team in this game, now that it's the title game, will we see some like strategy or like some modifications to the game plan?
I think I'm with you like 90% of the way, Brandon, with one tiny tweak, because I do think that this is the perfect game to live bet because it is going to be such high variance. But the tiny tweak I will put on is I'll be looking to bet the Pacers spread live, and maybe even to like plus 3.5, 4.5. I think that if the Pacers are mounting a comeback, I'm not team NBA is rigged. I am team LeBron complains all the time and it pays off and the Lakers get a friendly whistle down the line. And I don't think the NBA would hate to see the Lakers win this thing. So I don't think I'll live bet the Pacers money line, but I think I will definitely live bet. Like if they get down 10, 11, 12, and you can get plus 12.5, 14.5, 16.5,
Yeah.
I would snatch that up. I would even do like an alt within there if that's possible, and get like a plus 4.5 or something like that at a decent number. But the money line scares me a tiny bit just because of that potential for a close game whistle going LeBron in the Lakers' way.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I had this in my notes as well. You talked about the home court advantage. Obviously, we have no idea if that was anything tonight because it was like a 3,000 point game. So Matt has an article up at Action Network. I feel like I think you said a few bookmakers gave it like a half point toward the Lakers, so not basically negligible. But home court, to me, why that could matter is because it's going to help influence the refs a little bit. And if it does influence the refs, they're not going to need any help in this one. And that is not a Lakers bias statement. That is a style of play thing. Because get ready for it. The Lakers are number 4 in drawing free throws per field goal attempt. The Pacers are last in foul rate. They foul on over 25% of opponent field goal attempts. That's going to be a problem. That is going to be a big problem. And like, Joe, I think you were very charitable saying that they do a good job at limiting opponent 3-point attempts. I feel like that's a charitable way of just saying that they don't play defense and opponents can just get to the rim every time that they feel like it.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
they
look,
allow,
I lawyered it.
You did. So they allow the fewest threes, they allow the most twos, and they also, here's the combo that's real bad. It's one thing if you allow the most twos by design, but like your 2-point percentage is low. Nope. They're dead last in 2-point percentage defense, 65.5% allowed. So yeah, the math on that is every 2-pointer is worth 1.3 points per possession. Lakers going to shoot a lot of twos, and if they get 1.3 every time they do it, this is why we all agree the Lakers are the team that should be favored here because they've got that advantage. They obviously have a big size advantage. Pacers are a bottom 5 rebounding team. So like, as I thought about where the variance could come from, the Pacers don't really force a lot of turnovers. They won't turn it over themselves, but I don't think that's going to be a huge swing necessarily. They're not going to get a big rebounding advantage, though they did have a lot of offensive rebounds in the Thursday game here. So maybe, but I think 3-pointers has to be the way they come up with it. A note on pace, obviously Indiana is number 1 on pace. The Lakers are 9th. So that was why I thought money might come in on the over, but you're right. Obviously pace slows down in a playoff setting. Just real quick, we talked about MVP. Obviously, if the Pacers win, Halliburton is the MVP. So if you want to bet Pacers money line of some sort, like definitely just bet Halliburton MVP, but it'll probably basically be the same odds.
Roughly.
Do we think that is also true of LeBron and the Lakers? Can Anthony Davis win MVP? Is there anyone else that could win besides LeBron or Hallie? Jim, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm really curious. This is one that it's tough because we have no point of basis for this. Like there are no past seasons to compare this to. I have thought for a while that it is going to be weighed heavily what it happens in the final game. That being said, LeBron almost seems like the one player who is like bulletproof in that sense. Like AD, unless he goes for like 50 and 25 with some like Wilt Chamberlain numbers, I don't see a way in which LeBron doesn't win it. And again, and Halliburton's almost the same. We're in a very interesting spot where it seems like there are two very, very obvious candidates, and it's baked into their numbers as well. I do think if going back to that Halliburton hedge, I think a LeBron MVP is a safe hedge to if you want to grab a couple extra points on the money line. I suppose there is a universe in which AD goes crazy and LeBron maybe gets like tweaks an ankle or something, but we're really going to extremes to have to try to find a very narrow margin for what I think is not a very likely event.
Yeah. I mean, you can get LeBron at -120 to win MVP at BetMGM, which is, I believe, the best price in the market overall. And the highest I'm seeing Anthony Davis is like around 14-1. And then you're seeing Halliburton basically +110. Like the line on Halliburton is actually like implying that he could win in a loss. Like, I think that that's actually the way that this is setting up. Like his line shouldn't be +110. Like it should be at least what the money line is, if not a little bit higher. And it's not. Like they have Halliburton, I'm seeing like +110, +125. And when we look at the spread here, the Pacers are +138. So like the line is actually implying that he could win in the loss. That would be Brandon's cackling.
Do you guys know, like, I will never show up on buckets again if our 70-1 Tyrese Halliburton ticket loses, despite them winning the title, winning the cup, and of all people, LeBron steals it away. This may be my final episode if that is the case. Speaking of which, let's transition really quick to just like a 10-minute Futures Friday segment. Something a little fun here we want to do. We'll make it actionable for you. So, of course, this week, the college football playoff came out with their Final Four rankings. Florida State fans, we're sorry you're going to be enjoying a game against Georgia and not playing in the playoff. So we wondered, what if the NBA season ended right now, this moment, and the three of us are going to be the committee. We're going to choose our 4-team playoff, talk through a little bit, and then just what it means for the future, how it might impact how we're thinking about this thing. So we each made our top 7, submitted them blindly, and kind of put things together. We're going to go through as quickly as just so that we don't take too long and upset our producers too much here. But at the very top, I think it's pretty obvious the Celtics are the 1 seed. They are 15-5. They're number 1 in net rating, number 1 SRS. They're the title favorite. They're the pretty easy 1 seed. I won't say who, but one of us did not put them as our number 1. They had the number 2. But Joe, let me just ask you, do you agree the Celtics can be our consensus number 1 seed?
They can be consensus number 1, begrudgingly. Begrudgingly.
Okay. So the Celtics are the 1 seed. That's pretty obvious. They got to be in the tournament. Obviously, like, we're going to talk through down the line here, but like we only get 4. So that's 1. We're down to 3 slots left for our tournament. So up next, let's talk about the defending champions, the Denver Nuggets. For me, as the committee chairperson, I was like, am I really leaving the defending champs and Jokic out of this? I feel like no. The Nuggets are right now 14-8. They're top 9 in net rating and SRS, which, is good, but not top 4. Not really that close. They are 7-2 with Jamal Murray. They've got Jokic. Jim, you had the Nuggets in your top 4. Is there a world where we do this tournament without the Nuggets?
No, I don't think so. I in fact, I had them second for a hot minute. I slipped them down to third at the very last second for a team that hopefully we get to in a minute. But I had the same thing as you. They're 7-2 with Murray, and Murray just came back. So I think if we try and think of this in committee college football framing, they just got the star player back. They're if they get left out, it's chaos, it's pandemonium, it's no good. They've got some impressive wins. Jokic is the best player in the world, hands down, right now. Like you can't leave him out. I think they absolutely have to be. I think they're not a Celtics lock, but only because they've had a little bit of bad luck with Murray being injured, and that it's those two as the top 2.
Yeah, to me it was the Nuggets. The Celtics are the 1 seed lock. The Nuggets are a top 4 lock, but we can talk about where in the 4 they should go. Is kind of how I viewed it. Joe, any thoughts on the Nuggets to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're kind of one of those teams, like, you have to keep them in. They're the reigning champs. Like, Jokic is the best player in the world. But they haven't looked as good. They just haven't looked as good. And like, there's definitely some question marks in terms of the health. So, like, they've had guys in and out of the lineup due to injury. I don't I don't know how much they care about the regular season, to be honest with you, this year. I think they just are like, we'll make it to the playoffs and we'll worry about it then because we can beat anybody. And like, even when we were the best team and we were the top seed, we got gifted with the Phoenix Suns. So like, it doesn't matter. So
Yeah. So, okay. In our rating system, I did not reveal this to you beforehand, but we ranked our top 7. I just gave it 7 points for first, down to 1 for 7th. So the Celtics came in with 20 points. They had 2 firsts and a second place. Cough, Joe, cough. So that was our number 1. The Nuggets are not number 2. They came in third with 14. We had a clear 3. And then after that, it's absolute chaos for the final spot. So before we get to the chaos, give me your guess, either one of you. Hop in. Who is our other consensus has to be their top 3 team?
Gotta be Minnesota,
Minnesota,
right?
yeah.
Joe's title pick.
80-1, baby.
It is, in fact, Minnesota. They came in second in our voting system. And as the resident Timberwolves fan on the podcast, I definitely ranked them last between the 3 of us. So I'm not the reason the Timberwolves were so high. You guys had them higher than me. They obviously have the number 1 record. They're 16-4. So, college football style wise, we got to include the team with the best record. They're top 4 SRS, top 4 net rating, number 1 defense. Obviously, you have Ant like the next big star or one of them in the NBA. You want to get the big star there, the future. You want the Big Ten champion there, right? Minnesota. So, Joe, I believe if I remember right, this was your number 1 team, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're really good. Like, and I think that when we look at this, right, like they're still holding the number 1 defense. Jaden McDaniels has been out since November 20th, and he's instrumental to that defense. And they're still number 1. And he's just got cleared to work out, and participate in individual on-court activities. So, like, he's somebody that's coming back. I think this team can only get better realistically. And like as he's kind of improving, I think over just generally like day in, day out, he kind of continues to keep getting better. We're kind of seeing a little bit more rapport especially between him and like Rudy Gobert, I think is interesting. And Karl Anthony Towns is just, he's doing what he's got to do. So I think the team is good. I don't know. I think that right now it almost feels like they're built for the regular season. Like maybe we need to see it in the postseason, but based on what I've seen this year, they are definitely formidable. They care about the regular season. And when you have like a defensive anchor like Rudy Gobert, like your defensive metrics are going to be awesome throughout the regular season. So nobody's playing anything like really out of the ordinary. And it seems like whatever they've got going on is like working this year. Like I think it's like another full year, full off season with Finch. I love Minnesota. I think that this is I think they're going to be really good this year.
All right, Timberwolves are in our bracket. Jim, just in the interest of time, I'm going to let you make the decision here. Who gets the better seed, the Timberwolves or the Nuggets?
Oh, this is awesome because this plays perfectly into what I was about to say, which is that I originally had the Nuggets at 2, and I flipped them last second because I was trying to fully get into that NCAA football mindset, and there were 2 determining factors there that led me to Minnesota. One is that they've won 15 of their last 17. So if we were doing a weekly poll, they're the team that has, they started maybe a little bit lower, but they just keep climbing and climbing and climbing, and they're higher in the poll, even if it doesn't entirely make sense. And that's half of it. And the other half is they have the key wins. They have wins over Boston and Denver head to head. Again, this is not a sport where you only get 1 game head to head and you really have to make it count. But those are 2 incredibly impressive wins. I'm going with Minnesota. It'll be that classic game where it's in Minnesota, but all of us are all over Denver because we think that that's actually the much better team. And we move the line 6 points between open and close, and then Denver loses by 1 or something. But I think we give it to Minnesota as the 2 seed.
Yeah, I mean, look, in the world that we are creating, you do only get 1 game against some of these teams, and they do have the head-to-head against Denver and against Boston. So, yeah, I didn't think about that till you were bringing it up, and I was like, oh, I know exactly where he's going with this. And I ended up putting the Wolves at number 4. I kind of debated. They were my last team in against another couple teams, but I thought I was just trying. I have in my notes I was going to recuse myself from that discussion. So I will let you guys give the Timberwolves to number 2. Let's put in the Nuggets at 3 then, since we had a clear top 3. Here's where we're at from there, and we're going to have to do this quickly. Here's our votes for number 4. We had 6 other teams receiving votes because, again, we did a top 7. So I'm going to go from the bottom to the top. And then Each one of you gets to make the case for one team. I'll do the same. And then we're just going to decide because that's what we have time for. So, number 9, receiving 1 vote. I won't tell you who it was from. The mighty Golden State Warriors getting a vote on the back of the ballot because I felt like it. Number 8, with 4 points in the voting, only from one person. Number 8, the Philadelphia 76ers. Controversy.
Wow.
Number 7, getting 5 points in the voting system, only because I made Joe revise his ballot to take them off of number 1 initially. The Indiana Pacers coming in at number 7. Number 6 is the Lakers with 6 points in the voting. Right above them are the Milwaukee Bucks with 7 points. And by our voting alone, the team that would make it in at number 4 is the Oklahoma City Thunder at 8 points in the voting. So again, top to bottom, Thunder, Bucks, Lakers, and then Pacers, Sixers, Warriors. And I will point out that Pacers, Sixers, and Warriors all got votes from only one of us. So I'm actually going to executively rule all 3 of those out in the interest of time. We've got to choose either the Thunder, the Bucks, or the Lakers. We have 1 spot left. Who wants to go first?
I think it's got to be the Lakers, like just based on the fact that we're watching this in-season tournament going on right now. They're in the finals. Like, just if we're going to use like any sort of tiebreaker, it's like, well, in a March Madness style bracket, like the Lakers are going to do it. They're going to show up. They're going to try. You have LeBron, who just looks ageless. And you had the Bucks. Like, the Bucks just lost to the Pacers, and the Pacers appropriately got more votes than them. So in this poll, so I think the Lakers are just a more compelling team. They're a team that I would want to watch in this type of format. I like Oklahoma City. That would probably have them next. I think that the Bucks should be last, just based on the fact that, like, I don't think they have it together right now.
In the interest of NCAA goofy arguments one would make in a situation like this, the Lakers are undefeated now that Jared Vanderbilt has returned to the lineup. So that's happening. And once they moved Austin Reeves to the bench, they are 11-4. That is a 60-win pace, gentlemen. The Lakers are nearly unstoppable with Vando and with Reeves off the bench. They're also, now after tonight, tied for 4th in wins. We only need 4. So obviously, the Lakers and all their money and market and LeBron should be in the finals. Like, let's be honest, the real committee would just put the Lakers in, and that would be the end of the conversation. Jim, who's your pick for our last team in?
If I can't make the case for the Sixers, which I can't believe I can't even make the case for Sixers, I think I do have to go with the Lakers too. I think in part because we want to sell tickets to this event, and in part because they are trending in the right direction. I don't think they're this good of a team, but I do think there is something to be said for now, a year plus of seeing them lift their level of play in playoff type atmospheres. LeBron's Heat teams finished 4th in the East. I do think there is something to be said to not weigh exactly what they have done and instead look at what we want to bring to this tournament. I do, and I'm with Joe actually in lockstep that the Thunder would be after that. Again, my actual 4 is Sixers, so I don't agree with any of this. But since I have been banned from talking about how good Embiid is actually playing this year, I will go with the Lakers.
Listen, if we're the committee, we get to make up our own rules. And if I'm going to be a committee and make up my own rules, there's no way in heck I'm giving a vote to Philadelphia after everything I've done on Twitter the last 2 weeks. So get out of here, Sixers. For the record, the Bucks were number 2 on my ballot. So They would be my clear choice here. They're top 6 still in SRS and net rating, which surprised me for like the conversation about them is their record is good, but they haven't looked the part. They didn't look the part this week. I didn't think they were very good in either one of these games that we saw, but you have the star power, you have Giannis, you have Dame. Look, at the end of the day though, in NCAA, we watch the conference championship games. That's the last taste you get. And then you go make the bracket afterward. We just got a taste of the Lakers, and they won their conference championship game by 3,000 points over the Pelicans. And like, if the real committee got to see that and saw LeBron look like he did this week and saw the Lakers look like the Lakers, I think we know how this would go. So we're going to give the Lakers the 4 seed. I am not giving them my vote in classic Jim form here. I would give my vote to the Bucks, but we're going to call it 2-1 because you guys both have the Lakers. So I told you we had to make it actionable. So to wrap it up here, as the clock strikes midnight Central, Our tournament bracket is Boston 1, Minnesota 2, Denver 3, Lakers 4. This is Futures Friday, gentlemen. So to make this actionable for our listeners, Joe, what is one actionable takeaway that you could think of from, thinking of title, MVP, et cetera, looking forward from what we just talked about?
I think you can take the Timberwolves to win the division at like plus 180. They have a little bit of a lead over the Nuggets right now. They have a 2-game lead over them. And part of why I like this is like what I've said. The Denver, I don't know how much they necessarily care about being the 1 seed or winning the division or whatever the circumstances are. And I like what Minnesota is doing defensively. I think that this is something that they can sustain over the course of the season. Obviously, like you need Gobert to be in there, but like that's kind of what we're talking about. Minnesota has been healthy. Denver has not been healthy. And like, I think that they are going to take some of their guys and try to limit some of their exposure if there is any type of risk of injury, because they are trying to win another title here. And they know that they have the tools, they have the roster to do so. So I think at plus 180, given the fact that we're, 25% of the way through the season, and they have a 4-game lead in the loss column over Denver right now. I think that this number is like, it's just a little sticky on the fact that Denver is the reigning champ. So at plus 180, I'll dabble with Minnesota to win the division.
All right, Jim.
Mine's a little briefer, but a little big picture as well. My biggest thing is that, and please repeat this to me in April if I have forgotten by then, this Lakers team on paper is not what they are in the playoffs. And it burned me in a couple of series last year, and it burned me in this in season. And it really shouldn't. I like I've said many times, I have long been the LeBron supporter, and it's funny that I have now flipped, and I can't get out of my head that these Lakers aren't that good. But we have seen now time and time and time again that they do have at least some ability to step up a little bit. Again, I don't think they're a 45% shooting team from 3, but I do think they have an ability to play above their, as you said, 22nd ranked SRS rank coming into this game tonight. They are not that team, and I need to not weigh that as heavily. And then my only other takeaway is that I think if it's not at the books, I can at least bet 76ers with my fellow Action Network employees. Maybe I'll take some head-to-heads with Brandon come postseason, because I think I will once again be the high man on the Sixers come April.
I'm glad you said it, because I was going to say, I believe your correct actionable takeaway, one of them needed to be that you need to get some money on the Sixers, because you're the one of the three of us that in my notes, I had Sixers equal Notre Dame. Like, we already know it's going to happen in the tournament. I don't need them in my bracket. They're going to sell some tickets and then just flame out in the first round. So come at me, Philly fans. My takeaway is very, very Brandon-esque, I think. Bet the Celtics. Like, we didn't have to talk about how obvious that they were at number 1. And also, Joe and I didn't consider Philadelphia a top 7 threat in our team. And Milwaukee, you guys both are down on. The Celtics are in the Eastern Conference, and it just feels like we think they're the best team anyway, but also the Nuggets have all the stuff we said about the Timberwolves. And we didn't even really talk about the Thunder that much, but like, we'd have a lot of good stuff to say about them. We got the Lakers, who look really great right now. We didn't talk about the Clippers. They could still be in any given week in the mix. The Warriors, if they get something going. I don't know. There are like 3 or 4 other teams. The Pelicans, a lot of us thought the Pelicans might win against the Lakers tonight. They did not. They really, really, truly did not. But there's just are a lot of mines, right? Like a lot of dangerous spots in the West. It just still doesn't feel like that in the East. So I think my takeaway is that, to me, I just have the Celtics in a tier on their own. Even as I had the Bucks second, like, I should be the one least wanting to bet the Celtics, since I have the team closest to them. And I just think that the gap is so clear here. And like, really, as we choose our final 4th team here, hey, we made a Boston Lakers first round matchup. Good job to us. We're all getting raises after this.
You're welcome, Adam.
But honestly, whoever we picked as the 4th is going to just be a ginormous underdog to Boston in our little tournament anyways, because of how we had the bracket set up. So to me, that's the takeaway, is don't bet Boston now, but just like wait. I already know who I think is the best team. Buy a bunch and look for the spot. And when is, they're going to have a 4-game losing streak, or they're going to have some injuries or something. This is the team that I think is best by margin in this league. And so that's the team that I should be waiting to bet. So that's my Friday futures takeaway. And that's it. We're going to wrap up. We are still under an hour. I'm calling that success, guys. We did it. It's time to sleep. Saturday night, Pacers, Lakers for all the glory. Sean and Matt will be back and give you a little more update live from Vegas. That's it. Enjoy the games. Enjoy the championship. Let's get buckets.